Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive with us. If you're loving these explorations, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on future episodes. And for all you super fans, don't forget to check out the merch store. You can find the link in the description box below. Today we're taking a trip across the US to uncover some of the weirdest and most obscure state laws. You know those laws that make you scratch your head and say, wait, is that really a law?
These laws offer a fascinating glimpse into how American society has evolved over time.
Yeah.
Its values, its concerns, and even its sense of humor.
Okay, so let's dive right in. Why are there so many of these quirky regulations, and why do they stick around for so long?
Well, the U.S. legal system is complex. Many of these laws are remnants of a bygone era reflecting social norms or anxieties that may no longer be relevant today. For example, you mentioned quirky regulations. Well, some of these are what we call blue laws. These were designed to enforce religious observance, particularly on Sundays.
So that explains the Dominoes ban in Alabama on Sundays. It's illegal to play dominoes on a Sunday in Alabama. Hard to imagine getting arrested for that today.
Exactly. While it might seem humorous today, it reflects a time when activities deemed frivolous or unnecessary were restricted on the Sabbath.
It really makes you think about how much has changed. Speaking of changing social norms, our next stop takes us to Arizona, where public health concerns of the past have left their mark on the legal code. Spitting in public could land me in trouble in Arizona.
Indeed. This law, while seemingly trivial, likely stems from the early 20th century when concerns about tuberculosis were paramount. Spitting was considered a major vector for spreading the disease, so laws were enacted to discourage the practice.
It's amazing how a seemingly simple act like spitting could be so intertwined with the history of public health. Okay, from public health to the preservation of cultural heritage, our journey takes us to Arkansas, where they have a law about pronunciation.
You heard that right. In Arkansas, it's technically illegal to mispronounce the state's name. It's Arkansas, not Arkansas. This law was established in 1881. It reflects a desire to preserve the state's unique identity and how the name is pronounced locally.
So it's more about honoring the state's heritage than about strict legal enforcement.
Precisely. While it's highly unlikely to be enforced in a literal sense, it speaks volumes about the importance people place on their language and their regional identity.
That's a great point. It reminds me of how some countries have entire academies dedicated to preserving the correct pronunciation and usage of their language. Now, from linguistic preservation, we're heading to Connecticut, where we encounter a law that's sure to pique your curiosity. Pickles have to bounce. Is that even possible?
Believe it or not, in Connecticut, a pickle isn't legally considered a pickle unless it bounces when dropped. This law, though seemingly bizarre, has its roots in a 1948 case where pickle packers were caught selling rotten pickles.
Rotten pickles. So this bounce test was a way to ensure quality control and protect consumers from, well, bad pickles.
Precisely. The bounce test is actually rooted in some basic science. A firm, fresh pickle with good elasticity will bounce due to its internal pressure and the brine solution. So the next time you're in Connecticut, remember, if it doesn't bounce, it might not be a real pickle.
Okay, I'm definitely going to be testing all my pickles from now on. It's amazing how even something as seemingly mundane as a pickle can have such a fascinating legal backstory. Now let's swap those pickles for a microphone and head to Florida, where they've got a law that's sure to make you chuckle. No singing in a swimsuit. Is that for real?
It is, believe it or not. While enforcement may be lax in modern times, it reflects a bygone era when public decency laws were more prevalent.
So no impromptu beach concerts in Florida. It's interesting how ideas of what's considered appropriate in public have shifted over time. Now, from the sunny beaches of Florida, we're off to Hawaii, where we encounter a law that's a bit more mysterious. No putting coins in your ears. I'm intrigued.
Yeah. This law is shrouded in a bit of mystery. Its exact origins are unclear. Some speculate it might stem from old cultural beliefs or superstitions associated with the ears, while others suggest it could be rooted in concerns about potential choking hazards, especially for children.
It makes you wonder about the intersection of law culture and even perhaps folklore. Now, from the Aloha State, our legal adventure takes us to Indiana, where black cats and Friday the 13th collide in a rather unusual law.
In Indiana, if you own a black cat, it must wear a bell on Friday the 13th. This law, though seemingly whimsical, was actually enacted during the Great Depression, a time when superstitions and anxieties were heightened.
So it was a way to counter the fear associated with black cats. especially on a day already laden with superstitious dread.
Precisely. It's a fascinating reminder of how laws can sometimes be a reflection of the anxieties and cultural beliefs prevalent in a particular era. It really highlights how even seemingly irrational fears can find their way into the legal code.
It's almost like these laws become a sort of historical record of what people feared or worried about at the time.
Exactly. And sometimes those fears might seem unfounded or even silly in retrospect, but they were very real to the people who lived through them.
Speaking of seemingly unfounded fears, let's move on to Kansas, where we encounter a law that's sure to raise some eyebrows among dessert enthusiasts. In Kansas, it's illegal to serve ice cream on cherry pie. Can you believe that?
It does sound a bit outlandish, doesn't it? But it likely reflects a desire to preserve culinary traditions or perhaps even protect the integrity of certain dishes.
So a law dictating how to eat your pie. I guess there's a reason we don't see that one enforced too often. From dessert regulations, we're heading to Minnesota, where we encounter a law that reflects a growing concern for animal welfare. No greasy pig contests. I have a feeling this one's going to be interesting.
You're right. Minnesota has outlawed both greasy pig contests and turkey scrambles, likely in response to concerns about animal cruelty and the ethics of using animals for entertainment.
It makes you wonder about the line between harmless fun and potential animal exploitation. I mean, these contests might seem like a tradition to some, but to others, they raise ethical questions about how we treat animals.
Exactly. And this law in Minnesota is a great example of how societal values and our understanding of animal welfare have evolved over time.
What might have been considered acceptable decades ago is now viewed as inhumane and unacceptable.
Right.
It's a reminder that laws are not static. They change, along with our understanding of the world and our place in it. Now, from pigs and turkeys, we're off to Missouri, where we encounter a law that's both comical and concerning. No driving with an uncaged bear. Did people actually do that?
It might sound like something straight out of a cartoon, but this law actually highlights the importance of public safety and responsible animal ownership. Driving with an uncaged bear poses a serious risk to both the driver and the public, not to mention the well-being of the bear itself.
I can only imagine the chaos an uncaged bear could cause on the open road. Okay. From bears behind the wheel, we're heading to New Jersey, where they have a law that's unique in the United States. No pumping your own gas. I've never even heard of that.
That's right. In New Jersey, it's illegal to pump your own gas. Only certified attendants are allowed to handle the pumps. This law was enacted back in 1949 with safety as the primary concern, aiming to prevent accidents, fires, and fuel spills.
I see the logic behind it, but it's still so fascinating that New Jersey is the only state that has held on to this law. It's like a little piece of history preserved at the gas pump. Speaking of unique laws, our journey takes us to Oregon, where we encounter a regulation that's sure to make you scratch your head. No whistling underwater. How is that even enforced?
This is one of those laws that's more of a legal curiosity than a strictly enforced regulation. It's probably a placeholder or a remnant of a bygone era that simply never got repealed.
So it's like a little legal ghost from the past, still lingering on the books. It makes you wonder how many other forgotten or obsolete laws are still out there just waiting to be rediscovered. Now, from the depths of underwater silence, we surface in Texas, where we encounter a law that's a bit more serious. No selling human eyes. That sounds pretty intense.
It does, doesn't it? This law reflects broader national concerns about the ethics of organ donation and the black market for human body parts. The sale of human organs is strictly prohibited in the United States to prevent exploitation and ensure ethical practices in organ transplantation.
It's a reminder that even in the realm of medicine and healthcare, there are ethical boundaries that need to be carefully considered and upheld. Okay, from the Lone Star State, our journey takes us to Virginia, where we encounter a law that's both perplexing and intriguing. A tickle torture ban. What exactly does that entail?
While the term tickle torture might sound amusing, this law is actually rooted in preventing harassment and unwanted physical contact. Tickling, even if intended as harmless fun, can be a form of abuse or control, especially in situations where there's a power imbalance.
So it's less about tickling itself and more about the context and consent. It's a reminder that even seemingly innocuous actions can have harmful consequences if they're not consensual.
Precisely. This law highlights the importance of respecting personal boundaries and recognizing that what might be playful for one person could be deeply uncomfortable or even traumatizing for another.
It's a reminder that laws often evolve to reflect changing societal values and our understanding of consent and personal autonomy. And finally, our last stop on this whirlwind tour of weird state laws takes us to Washington State, where we encounter a regulation that's sure to spark your imagination. In Skamania County, Washington, it's illegal to hunt Bigfoot. Can you believe that?
Believe it or not, it's on the books. Of course, the existence of Bigfoot itself is highly debated, but this law reflects the enduring fascination with cryptids, mythical creatures, and the mysteries that lurk in the unexplored corners of our world.
It's almost like a modern-day myth or legend finding its way into the legal code. It makes you wonder about the power of folklore and the stories we tell ourselves about the unknown.
Absolutely. And this law in Washington serves as a reminder that even in a supposedly rational and scientific age, we're still drawn to the unexplained and the possibility of things beyond our current understanding.
Yeah, it's like that these laws are little windows into different moments in time, capturing the anxieties and the hopes and even the quirks of American society.
And it's those quirks that make exploring these laws so much fun,
Well,
right?
absolutely. I mean, who would have thought we'd be talking about bouncing pickles and black cat bells today?
It's certainly not your typical legal analysis, but that's what I love about these deep dives. They take us beyond the surface into the unexpected and often humorous side of the legal world.
Speaking of unexpected, I have a question for you. Out of all the laws we've talked about today, is there one that particularly surprised you or one that really made you think?
That's a tough one. They're also fascinating in their own way. But I think the one that keeps coming back to me is the Bigfoot hunting ban in Washington. It's such a whimsical law, but it speaks to something deeper about our relationship with the unknown.
I agree. It's almost like a modern-day myth or legend finding its way into the legal system. It makes you wonder if those who wrote the law actually believed in Bigfoot, or if it was more about embracing the mystery and attracting tourism.
It's a great question, and it really gets to the heart of what makes these laws so intriguing. They often leave us with more questions than answers, but maybe that's the point. Maybe they're meant to spark our curiosity and encourage us to explore the gray areas, the spaces where law, culture, and folklore intersect.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners today? Should they be worried about accidentally breaking one of these bizarre laws on their next cross-country road trip?
Honestly, the chances of getting arrested for mispronouncing Arkansas or forgetting to put a bell on your black cat on Friday the 13th are pretty slim. But I think the real value in exploring these laws lies in the awareness they bring.
Awareness of how our legal system has evolved, how it reflects the values and beliefs of different times, and how those values continue to shape our world today.
Exactly. These laws, even the silly ones, offer a unique lens through which we can examine American history and culture. They remind us that laws aren't just abstract rules, they're stories. Stories about who we are, where we've been, and perhaps where we're going.
Beautifully put. And who knows, maybe by understanding the stories behind these laws, we can better understand ourselves and the society we live in.
I think you're right. And perhaps we can even find some humor and a bit of wonder along the way.
Well, folks, there you have it. We've traveled from coast to coast, uncovering a treasure trove of weird and obscure state laws. We hope you've enjoyed this legal adventure as much as we have.
And remember, the next time you hear about a strange law, don't just dismiss it. Dig a little deeper, ask some questions, and you might be surprised by what you discover.
Because as we've learned today, even the most outlandish laws can have a fascinating story to tell. And those stories can teach us a lot about ourselves, our history, and the ever-evolving nature of law and society. So stay curious, keep exploring, and until next time, thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.